And when you don't tell your story, you're denying someone the beauty of being able to grasp onto your story and to encourage you. Because no, the journey is not always easy. Sometimes you want to have that encouragement as well. So just know that someone wants to hear your story, so tell it.
Welcome to the Pet Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Scarlett Rockwood. As a content marketer for pet professionals, I love talking with other marketers and business owners in the pet industry and sharing their marketing advice with you. So join me for the latest episode and learn how to grow your audience, increase your revenue, and impact the lives of pets and their people. Today's guest is Orezi Cook, an Atlanta-based entrepreneur dedicated to enhancing pet care and community welfare. She's the founder of Praline's Backyard Dog Services, focused on enrichment-based dog walking and in-home pet sitting, and Praline's Backyard Foundation, which supports domestic violence survivors in keeping their pets during transitions. Orezi also leads Paws on Purpose, a digital course that guides pet business owners in integrating nonprofit elements into their operations. Her work bridges the gap between business success and community impact. Hey, Orezi, thank you so much for joining us today. So, can you explain kind of how you got into this and what it really means to you to integrate a nonprofit into a pet business and why you believe it's beneficial?
First of all, I was on a path of entrepreneurship. I had no intentions on starting a nonprofit. It was not a part of my business plan at all. My plan was I was doing dog walking and I was planning on expanding to include a physical building. And in that expansion, I always worked at domestic violence shelters or humane societies. I always knew that when I was opening this physical building that I would house pets and violence survivors because I recognized that barriers for a survivor leaving an abuser is lack of housing for their pet. So I just had always, that was a part of the plan, not a nonprofit, but just like my giving back to the community. That's just what kind of like a side gig, I'll call it. And then as my dog walking expansion did not go as a plan, but I still wanted to house pets of survivors. And I was sharing this as part of my social media, just part of my business. Like my clients know that I always do this side thing. It was no big deal. But then people suggested, why don't you start a nonprofit? I was like, no, I just want to do this side thing. But then it began to eat into my profits because I was just doing it as a part of my business planning, using my profits to help pets of survivors and house them just here in Atlanta. And then as I continued to get feedback from people and it really resonated with people. And then I was like, oh, well, this is really beginning to cut into my business. So let me see how I can really make this a more sustainable way. And one way that was sustainable was to create a nonprofit. And then I created this nonprofit, and then people continued to fund it, and they funded it even more. And I got national attention in the sense of people from all over the country started sending money once I was a nonprofit, and I was helping more than just people in Atlanta. And that's how I never went on the path to start a nonprofit because I worked at a nonprofit for years, and I was like, I don't want to do a nonprofit. Like I don't want to do that. But then it was just cutting into the business, and I was like, how can we do this more sustainable? I started researching a nonprofit. I established a nonprofit. I went through a lot of hiccups in that process, a lot of research, and then it was nothing out there to help me. And what I encountered was a lot of other pet businesses do the same thing. They do a side thing helping pets in need, but it's hitting into their business and their operating expenses of their business. And so I just shared my story and I started helping businesses on the side. So I kept doing the side thing. And then the side thing became like, how can I help pet businesses in a more structured way? And then that developed into Paws on Purpose. Sorry, that was a long story.
No, that's exactly what you're on here to talk about today. So just to clarify, you had the extra space in your physical location and you were housing the pets of domestic abuse survivors so that they could get, out of the situation into a more stable situation and on their own, and then get their pets back in the home with them.
Exactly. Well, that was the plan. And so an interim part of that plan, I would just pay for the housing of that pet at a local pet boarding facility. But I was going to have a physical building. That physical building did not pan out. And so just as a pivot, and just as a bigger pivot, I said, let me just help any pet anywhere in the country because I can work in partnership with other existing pet boarding facilities. And that's what we do today at Praline's Backyard Foundation.
Awesome. So how did you set up? This is kind of just me getting curious now. How did you set up to where that was no longer a strain and a expense on your business, but was something that was, funding itself and therefore able to grow.
Gotcha. So I ended up creating a whole different social media, a whole different platform for the nonprofit. And then I connected with a lot of people reached out to me when I told them I have a nonprofit arm now to the business. And there's an organization called doobert.com. It is a national foster network. And so I partnered with them. And so when a survivor reaches out to Pralines Backyard Foundation, I'm able to connect with Doobert and say, hey, we have this survivor that we have a pet in this area, any fosters in this area. So Doobert has a foster network for any issue, like any humane society can tap into Duber's network, a lot of different companies, organizations. And so I partnered with them, and that allowed me to get that foster component done. And then I got people to donate. So I have recurring donations every month. And so, and then when I need a foster and Duper cannot help me, I'll put out on social media and say, hey, I have this survivor that has a pet in, I'll say, Kansas City, Missouri. And they need anybody in this area that can foster this survivor's pet. This is the pet's profile. Contact me, however that happens, and that's what they do.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Thubert, but I haven't. I'm surprised that that came up because I didn't realize that that was the way that you do it. That's great.
Yeah.
So for anyone who is a viewer here, we are going to include the link to Dubert if you are just curious what they do. It's pretty cool. It's a foster network, and it's a lot of other really cool things that they do that they have built around. And they've done a really good job of kind of what we're here to talk about today is building a nonprofit and a mission in a way to enhance the actual business brand's image. So how does that work? How does building a nonprofit, in addition to doing it that way, making the nonprofit itself more sustainable, how does that actually help the business grow?
Gotcha. So first of all, whenever I do any kind of marketing for the dog walking business, the nonprofit is a part of that marketing, in the sense of, like, even on my website, at the bottom of the page, it talks about the foundation. Every page of the website talks about the foundation. And then whenever we have events, it's something about the foundation. And so I'm always educating my clients. All of the clients of Pralines Backyard Dog Services knows that we have the foundation. This is what the purpose it serves. People love it. And so when people hear about that, it's like, it's an added selling point, because they recognize we're doing this for them. And we also using the funds that they give us to fund this nonprofit. 10% of the profits from Pralines Backyard Dog Services goes to the foundation. Let me say that as well. And my clients, at the end of the year, they all give on a consistent basis. They'll do their end of year giving, and they think of the foundation, because it's like, they know that the work that we do as a company, and we're able to give that to somebody else who needs it in this time of desperate need. They love it. Because I have built a company that aligns with my values and my way I want to give back. And so my clients, they're coming to me because of who I am already, right? And then to know that I'm doing this for the community is an added bonus. It's like, oh, they want to be a part of that. People want to be a part of giving back, especially when they recognize that they love their pets, right? And they couldn't imagine someone else not being able to make the decision to live a better life and leave their pet behind with an abuser. And so it just automatically just brings it to the heart of a person. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of a way to not just attract more clients, but specifically attract clients who are socially conscious and are aligned with the values that you care about the most. And, for example, there's a lot of people who have adopt, don't shop initiatives as part of their brand.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of giving back to their local shelters, but they don't necessarily have a way where it's set up as a nonprofit. And it's something that makes it easier for those customers to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And that's another component. Like there is a lot of companies, businesses especially, give back to charitable activities, not necessarily as a nonprofit umbrella. However, what I find as well is we as entrepreneurs, sometimes we like to control how our money and our resources are spent, right? So one way we recognize this issue in animal welfare, and I particularly looked at domestic violence survivors and their pets, because that's something that's very passionate to me. However, someone else could have another issue in terms of animal rescue, in terms of different things. Like, there are people, there's a nonprofit that I've helped assisted with. Their whole thing is about pet pantry, helping low-income persons be able to feed their pet. Because there is unfortunately, some people have the perception, if you're poor, you shouldn't have a pet. But that's not true. Pets are definitely, but people have that perception. But if you are a person and you recognize that pets are a they are just a bonding experience. They really help people mental health wise, to help you be more physically active, all these things. And a person can go through a financial situation and they need a pet pantry, just like we as individuals can need a pet pantry at different points in our life. And so this person's initiative is a pet pantry. And so if that resonates with you, then you would want to support that initiative, right? Or that nonprofit and another part of her business. And so it's just like, I mean, she controls that. She recognizes that as a need, and she can control it how she wants it to be. And people have other issues, not other issues, but other aspects of animal welfare that they're interested in. They want to control how the outcome is. And then, because you can see nonprofits throughout wherever you live and see how they operate. And you're thinking, I want to do that better. I know I can do this better because I have this experience, I have this insight, and you can do it better. If you want to do it. And then build community around doing it. Because my motto is always, many hands make light work. Praline's Backyard Foundation does not work in a silo. It works because of a lot of people who commit to donating, commit to fostering, commit to following, sharing, and liking our content because it puts it in front of more people. Because our goal is to raise awareness. Because I feel like if people knew about a problem, they would do something about it in whatever capacity that looks like for them. I'm obviously passionate about pets and survivors. However, somebody else could be passionate about pet pantry, helping seniors be able to get their dogs exercise. They can be passionate about marine life, birds, whatever it is. There is something that we're all passionate about, and you build community around that, and people will help you. I truly believe that if we educate people on an issue and see how it impacts them individually, they will give in the way that is sustainable for them. And so that's all the biggest goal of anything is to educate, and then it moves people to action. Sorry, that was long again.
No, absolutely. It's your show today. So kind of circling back to organizing that properly into a nonprofit, there's a side of that a lot of people don't think about when they think about their giving back, and they're not figuring out, they're not doing it to see what the advantage for them is. But there are tax advantages of integrating a nonprofit into your business. Can you tell us more about that?
Definitely. So you can donate up to 30% of your profits of your business to a nonprofit arm, right? And I have to have a couple of examples. Let me think of something easy with math. So imagine you have the $100,000 profit of your pet business, whatever that looks like. You're taxed at about 21%. I'll just do 20%, which is not correct, but we'll do 20 because it's easy. So that means you're going to have a tax bill of about $20,000, right? I'm sorry, you'll have a tax bill of $80,000 or $20,000, yes, $100,000 profit, 20% tax rate, $20,000 tax bill, right? So if you donated of that $100,000, you donated up to 30%. I will say 10%. You donated $10,000, which means now you're going to be taxed on $90,000 at 20%, which is going to be, I don't know, something less than that amount. So you're lowering your tax bill just by giving into the nonprofit arm. I could do some math too if I had a calculator. But essentially, you would lower the tax bill because you would no longer give the IRS $20,000. You would give them less of what 20% of 90,000 is. Because at 100,000, you're giving them $20,000 at 20% tax rate. But if you have $90,000, you're giving them 20% of a $90,000 tax rate. And that way you're decreasing the amount of taxes you're paying to the IRS. And we all love pay. I appreciate what our taxes go towards, right? But part of the reason why the government provides us as a nonprofit, the tax benefit is they don't have to deal with it. They don't have to deal with that issue of animal welfare because you're dealing with it as a company or as a nonprofit. They're saying, here's your thank you back. We get to give you this tax benefit. And so you're taking care of the problem, they're taking care of the problem that that you're better able to handle than the government is, unfortunately. This is because you're right there in the grassroots nature of that issue, and you recognize it. And they're saying, when they give you the nonprofit status, they're saying, oh, we recognize that's an issue too. Go for it. Here's this tax break you get to have. So that's why as a part of your business, it provides that tax benefit to your nonprofit and to your business at the same time. Now, that's a whole lot. So I don't know if I confuse the audience, but just think about your tax rate. If you're taxed on 100,000 compared to being taxed on 90,000, and that decreases your tax liability to the IRS, and you're able to give that money that you give away to the nonprofit helping animals in need. And if you do that outside of a nonprofit, it's just taken away from your business profits, and you're not getting a tax benefit at all. You're still helping animals in need, but you're not getting the tax benefit.
Absolutely. So, just to give an example, you don't do this set up through a nonprofit. You just give through one way or another, $10,000 of your 100,000 profit towards animal welfare or to whatever initiative that you care about. Then you're paying 20,000, so a total of 30 between the two for your taxes and your initiatives.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you do the taxes if you do set up the nonprofit and you get that tax break, which makes you pay 18,000 instead of 20,000, you've basically made the same amount of money, done the same amount of benefits to the pets, but you've
Mhm.
saved $2,000 on that. And that obviously balloons exponentially based on the more you give or the higher your profits are, or however that math works out for you. And
Yeah,
again, don't over quote us on this. We're using the easy numbers because we don't have time to go into the real tax numbers,
yeah.
but like the percentages are even for that reason, but you get the point.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Because definitely the idea is you get taxed less. You're paying your less taxes on that. And everyone's taxes is different and you're taxed at a different tax rate. But the idea is the more you give, the less money your profits are taxed.
Yeah. So in this example, you get 2,000 more dollars to take home as profit or to throw back into helping more pets, however you want to use it.
Gotcha. And I'm going to add on to that too, because we use $100,000 profit. Some businesses, small businesses, are not making that much of a profit, right? However, no, whatever you make as a profit, you're gonna be taxed on it by the IRS. And I'll use an example. The Furry Backyard Foundation, we help about 30 pets a month. As you can imagine, that's not a whole bunch of people, but it means the world to those 30 survivors, or give or take, that we're helping each month. And so know that your nonprofit doesn't have to be this big, elaborate organization, right? Because if you help pets in your community, it is really appreciated by that person and that individual and that pet that you're helping. So know that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I work with a foster organization that fosters cats and kittens here in town, and it's a very small foster network. We maybe can handle 15 to 20 cats at a time, depending on how many are separated, how many are in litters, things like that.
Mhm.
And we come together. There's a local store where we do adoption events, and that's about the only time all the fosters are in the same place. We all
Oh,
come
that's
together,
good.
bring the cats to the adoption events. But yeah, I mean, even as small as that is, that's change the world for that one cat that you're fostering right now.
Yeah.
So if you were to work with Dubert or even a smaller organization like that, or create your own, the amount of funding, even for something that small, how much even a little bit from a business can do is such a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, Going back to other advantages beyond just taxes, would you say that having a nonprofit that's set up officially has also built stronger ties to your community and better public relations for the business side?
Oh, definitely. Because whenever you go to any event, and I mentioned earlier that whenever I do vending, not vending, but I do like festivals and things of that nature to advertise about our business. And so I'm also advertising about the foundation. I have like a pop-up banner that I use for each of them. And so it starts a conversation, because even if a person does not own a pet, people, 1 in 3 women and one in 4 men have experienced domestic violence. So when they see the pop-up, that resonates with people on different levels. It's like, oh, you do this. And so people think about those connections. And so know that that's how that starts the conversation. So the person may not have a pet now, but they'll remember, like, oh, that organization, I got a pet. I need a dog walker. Let me reach out to this person. And so the same thing, when someone sees the pop-up banner about the business, they know about the nonprofit. So when they say, oh, I'm having a situation, or I have a friend having a situation, they're in California, but that organization, that nonprofit does this, let me connect. And so it helps in that branding, and also in that community building. And people recognize, like, we have an event every year here in Atlanta. It's called Pause for Domestic Violence, where we invite people to come out and have a bonding event with their dog. It's like a race. Along the race route is obstacle courses and different enrichment activities, just to demonstrate the bonding that happens with our pets, as a remembrance to survivors who are separated from their pet during this time, or they left their pet behind. Just recognize the bonding that you have. We want survivors to have that bonding and continue to have that bonding. And one way we can do that is to also support the foundation, so we can make sure that no pet is left behind. And also I'll mention, because you mentioned earlier about funding. Funding looks different to everyone. I mentioned that I use Dubert.com, and Dubert is a service. But in addition to that, we encourage businesses, and we have what's called recurring donations. People can donate, and they donate on a recurring basis. And I have that, thankfully, every month. That makes us sustainable to be able to assist 30 survivors a month. However, in addition to that, you can make giving to your nonprofit easy and allow your clients or your customers to invite them into that giving. And then you report back. I report every month back to my audience on social media, on my newsletter, letting them know what their donations, what their likes, follows, and shares is able to help. And so communicate what your nonprofit is doing to help pets in need and people in need in your community. And people they want to be a part of that. They want to know that I helped with that. I helped house 30 pets of a survivor this month. Oh, I helped feed this many pets this month by giving to this pet pantry. Or I helped a senior or a service dog do this month because of me giving back to this particular nonprofit. So just know that. And people can do roundup donations when you check out. You can do a number of things to make it seamless within your pet business. It does not mean like writing grants. It does not have to be cumbersome to your business. Because I tell people, you don't want another job. We don't need on another company. The nonprofit can work as seamless as you want it within a lifestyle that you have created for your business.
So, all right, you've sold me. I'm a dog walker that's listening. I'm excited. I want to do this. What are the first steps that I should take and when I'm considering setting up my nonprofit arm?
Okay, I would say first, how do you want to help pets in need? What space and time do you want to give to that? And then once we flesh that out, then we can create a plan for you. Obviously, we'll get a name, we'll get your EIN number, you'll do the application and all of that. But definitely set up how much time you want to give to it and what you want to do. Then we can go from there. So now that's what Pause on Purpose is about. We definitely can help with that. We have a Pause on Purpose introduction the 15th of every month. If you go to Pause on Purpose on social media or Instagram specifically, sign up for our 15th of the month live masterclass. We'll go through the details of how to establish a nonprofit arm to your pet business. You definitely can join the course, but also know I'm all about educating. People can do that. You can do that on your own, but also part of the course is you're in a community of other pet businesses who are like-minded that want to give back to their particular communities as well. But yes,
Awesome.
definitely.
Yeah, so we'll definitely include a link in the show notes as well, because this is releasing on the 13th. So I want to make sure everyone who is here is going to be able to get in on that because that's only a couple days. You don't even have to wait that long to get to that class on the 15th that goes through all the details. Just a quick, for those who maybe still feel a little bit daunted, like what is the expectation? What is even just like the quick checklist or outline of what you can expect to be involved in doing something like this?
Well, the government has what's called a form. You know, the government has a form, has a nonprofit form. You fill that form out. It's going to ask you what your statement of activities are, and that's why I asked, like, what do you want to do to help animals in need? So know what that is, and so we're able to write that down. You're gonna need a board of directors. And I'll say we start at a minimum of 3 people. The government does not say what amount of people that needs to be. I just say 3 at a minimum, just to make an odd number. And then you need to have the money. It's $150 at the time. It can go up on people listening to this years from now. But definitely know that. And then submitting the application, the government will review it. There's some questions in there, just like filling out your taxes, some questions in there. But definitely that's what it requires. And really demonstrate how your nonprofit is a public benefit, right? That's the main key to establishing a nonprofit, because how is what you're going to do going to benefit the public? And I'll use the example of the foundation. By helping pets of survivors, we're decreasing the incidence of animal cruelty. We decrease the incidence of animal abandonment. And because when we have animal cruelty, that becomes a burden on the government. When you have animal abandonment, that becomes a burden on our animal welfare organizations, our humane society, things of that nature. So you are providing a benefit to the community that you live in. So definitely demonstrate that in your application, and don't be vague, be very specific. Don't say, I'm going to help animals. Yeah, no, I help animals as a business too. I help dogs. That's not a nonprofit. That's not a public benefit to anyone in need with the dogs. So definitely be very clear on that statement. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, awesome. So once that is processed and assume you get approved, you've got your nonprofit.
Yes.
What are some of the common challenges in managing that nonprofit that you've seen, and maybe some ways to overcome those?
Well, that goes back to creating a plan. I asked about what you want to do and how much time you want to give to it. One thing early on, it can easily become, like I said, a second job. And I don't want that for anyone unless you have the space and the time to do that. However, you create a plan that works for you. If a plan works for you, if you're a mobile vet clinic, you want to provide free vaccinations to homeless, unhoused person. You maybe want to do that once a quarter, do that once a quarter. And that's what you set up your program to. It means every time someone hits a transaction, maybe they round up to the nearest dollar. And all the quarter, that money goes toward funding your once a quarter free day of vaccinations for your unhoused persons. And that's 4 times a year. And you're getting funding through the quarter to pay for that. So know that create something that works for you and your company and what you want to give back into your nonprofit. And know, again, you don't have to be the executive director of your nonprofit. You can get someone else to do that as well. So know that as well. So yeah.
Perfect. So it's time to brag on yourself a little bit, because I want to hear some success stories. I want to hear specifically about Praline's Backyard Foundation and how setting it up that way you've talked a little bit about how it's impacted the foundation itself, but I'd love to hear about how it's impacted, as a kind of not even set up that way, but as an accidental marketing initiative for your business, and how it's helped, bring in more business, grow, and therefore grow both that and the nonprofit initiative.
Yeah, definitely. Well, initially I started off Praline's Backyard. It was just me. And I now currently, I'm a team of 7, and we've expanded. We do dog walking, pet sitting, and dog taxi, which is pretty popular here in Atlanta. So that is just, I guess, I tell people, running a business and running the nonprofit is all about telling the story. And because I'm a good storyteller. And so I just tell the story. And it's not an elaborate story. It's like I tell people the truth and just be real with individuals. And it resonates with people. Like I mentioned early on, like I'm all about building a business that's authentic to who I am and not what society expects of me. And I think when you do that authentically, it invites people that are meant to be a part of your community in terms of being a client, being a part of a supporter for the foundation. I think it naturally happens that way. And so I won't say brag on myself, but I just believe that I told people, like, how do I say it? This moment, everything that's happened in my life has brought me to this moment. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to serve. And I love what I do. Like today, I picked up a dog and I took a dog taxi service, and I was able to really help this pet parent, and it meant the world to her. And it's like that's why I know I'm living in my life's passion. And the same as if I get an email or a call from a survivor and they're going through this really traumatizing time. And it's like, I just listen to them and I'm like, it's going to be okay. We're going to support you in this way. Thank you for reaching out. And it's going to get better. And so I'm able to provide that level of compassion and response to either a survivor or a client, and just hearing their gratitude and their thankfulness, and just like, they live a little less stressed. It's like, I'm able to help somebody. Like I believe I operate best in a capacity of helping other people, because I truly believe I'm on this earth to help somebody else. I'm not here I'm not going to build an amazing company, but I'm here to serve and to help somebody else. I didn't wake up to serve myself. So I'm honored I get to be a part of someone's story.
That's incredible. I'm honored to have you on to talk about that. It was great. I want to pick up and make sure that nobody misses what you said about storytelling, because I think that's really important in marketing in general for your pet business. Do you have any advice for someone who maybe doesn't feel like a natural storyteller of how to go about, turning that social media post or blog post or opportunity for PR into a storytelling initiative that then draws more people in to help?
I don't know. I just talk. So I just naturally like talk. So I would just say, and I've had a beautiful experience. Before all of this, before my business, I was never a social media person. Like back in the day when I was in college, which was a long time ago, when Facebook first came out, I was on social media, but I took years off. And I started telling the story. Like it wasn't glamorous. It was just me. Like even yesterday, I think I got on, I just said whatever. And I just talked to the camera and just be me. And people resonate with real people. I'm not glamorous, but just people resonate with real people, and people will resonate to you as your person out there. Because people love people. We love people. We love interacting with people. We love people being authentic. Because we get the commercial all the time. That's what we see all the time on TV. But if you just tell someone the story, tell them how I have a 20-year career in public health. You could never have told me 10 years ago that I would own a dog walking business. I would have founded a nonprofit. I have a doctorate in public health that my career was supposed to end at the CDC and retire, because that was the dream, is to work at CDC. And I got the dream. But my dream changed because as I continued to live life, and all of our dreams change. Maybe you wanted to be a doctor when you were 5 and you would do all the steps to do that. But then now at 35, you want to be, oh, I want to be an architect. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just tell the story. Whatever your story is, people love it and people love the idea of people living out their dream, living out your purpose. So sometimes life choices don't allow us to do that so freely. And if you're doing what you love, people want to see that because they want to hear it, because it gives them encouragement to do the same. And when you don't tell your story, you're denying someone the beauty of being able to grasp onto your story and to encourage you. Because no, the journey is not always easy. Sometimes you want to have that encouragement as well. So just know that someone wants to hear your story, so tell it.
That was beautiful. I love it. Okay, so looking into the future, do you see any future trends or the role of nonprofits evolving within the pet industry in the coming years?
I believe in grassroots work, and I believe that for the animal welfare space to change, it's going to take a whole bunch of small businesses and nonprofits to do that. Like, we definitely love our national humane societies. We love them, right? But we're on the ground as small business. We see the stray cat in the neighborhood. We see the stray dog. We see the lack of education among young people about how to train and treat animals. And so we see that. And so seeing that, we can fix that. Sometimes big organizations are so removed from the direct impact of pets in need that they miss that opportunity. And so we have easy access because we're right there with the clients. We're interacting with people with pets. We can see the need and respond more easily, because we don't have that much red tape. So yeah, that's what I see.
Yeah, so you see more small businesses getting involved, starting their own nonprofits, which I think is exactly what we're encouraging today.
Yeah,
So-
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I tell people, like, in every action helps. Like you mentioned your cat rescue or your cat fostering program. I mentioned the foundation and the work that we do. I think often people think nonprofits have to be this big thing, and it doesn't. It doesn't have to be, because we recognize even with all those big organizations, over 1 million pets are euthanized each year in the United States. And so that means there's a problem. That means that there's lack of education on, like I did a post, I'm going to post in a couple of weeks about a pet is not a gift. A pet is a responsibility. So don't give pets for the holidays, because you're giving somebody a lifetime responsibility. Don't give that to, I wouldn't want somebody to give me that's not a gift. That's a bill. I mean, not unless you want that, you prepare for that. Otherwise, it's not a gift. I don't know what the word to call it, but it's not a gift. But it's like a responsibility that just really, there's a work to be done, and we can do it. That's it. I'm done.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody go out there and start a nonprofit specifically about educating the Christmas puppy / Easter bunny problem. No more holiday gift living things.
Yes, definitely. Give a gift of a living thing. That's like it's a major thing. But yeah.
I've never had a Christmas puppy. I think the closest I ever came was I had a friend who showed up at my door with a ferret in her arms and said, "Here." But luckily, I already had 2 other ferrets, so it wasn't quite as much of a huge thing. But it was just so odd. I'm like, is this what people feel like when they just get a random living thing show up on their doorstep? Like,
Yeah.
what if I didn't? What if I mean, she knew me well enough to know I wanted it, but what if I didn't?
Yeah.
Like,
Or you
what
couldn't afford it. Or
what
you didn't want.
happens to this ferret now? Yeah, like at the time I had ferrets, so it was kind of easy to just throw him in with the pack at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting experience, and I wonder, like, surprise Christmas puppy or surprise I don't know if my mom will get mad at me for telling this story, but she got a surprise you get a kitten to see if maybe you won't divorce me now. Because my dad never let us have pets, and that was kind of one of his last ditch efforts. She kept the cat and not him. So
Okay. Yeah.
and Sweet Pea was the best cat ever. But anyway, yeah, surprise pets is definitely something that we could do a whole episode about. So you've got me off on a tangent, but
Sorry, but yeah, that's just something I just talk about, just how
mhm,
it needs education around it, because
mhm.
animals enter into different systems in terms of going into shelters that are overcrowded. They end up being homeless on the street, all because education. In terms of just even breeding of particular breeds of pets, that whole situation, the whole another story too. But just definitely recognize the responsibility of being the responsibility of a living being, and just being responsible about that. And as people are not responsible, education needs to happen, and nonprofits have a role to play in that education.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're thinking about doing a nonprofit, you don't even have to think about like building a facility. You don't have to think about even building a foster network. It could literally just be based on education and on helping people who have got a new pet understand exactly how to shoulder that responsibility, because they might have made that decision without really understanding just how much is involved in it. So that's a
That
really, so let's see, that's two or three new nonprofit ideas we
exactly.
got for you if you're
It
listening.
is exactly. It does not have to be elaborate. You could create a social media. My goal is to educate the population on proper pet ownership or pet parenthood, and just to decrease the incidence of homeless pets. That's your statement of public benefit right there.
Love that. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. So if somebody has viewed this episode, or maybe somebody sent them a 2-minute clip and they only learned one thing, what is the one key takeaway you want people to get out of this episode?
Many hands make light work, and we can help animals in need across this country. That's it.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you online?
Definitely pause on purpose, pause_on_purpose on Instagram. The website is Orzy, my first name, ORAZ as in zebra, IE.net. I talk all about establishing a nonprofit arm to your pet business. Definitely say hi. And also, because I don't enter on any podcast without mentioning the foundation, and our goal is to raise awareness about the barriers to survivors of domestic violence experience. Definitely follow Praline's Backyard, Praline_backyard. Follow, like, share, become a foster, donate, of course. I definitely raise awareness, and I just say follow, like, and share. Thank you.
Absolutely. And anyone who is following along on this episode, if you would like to get the direct links to any of that, it's all going to be in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode.
What was your favorite thing about this episode? Hit me up on Instagram at Scarlett Rockwood to tell me about it, or ask any questions that you have about marketing your own pet business. If you know other pet professionals who would love this podcast, go ahead and screenshot this episode and share it to your Instagram stories. Be sure to tag me when you do, because seeing who's listening and hearing your feedback is 100% what motivates me to keep doing what I do. You can also join the Facebook group to connect with other pet industry professionals like you. If you'd like to follow up on any of the resources or links mentioned in this episode, you can find them in the show notes. Don't forget to be awesome, and I'll see you in the next episode.